Greetings, everyone. I'm Sophis, and this is kind of a continuation of the last time that we were speculating on Archon Prophecy, because now the DLC is much closer. We got a lot more info, and as usual, I have Bootman with me to talk about things, uh, look at, what we predicted right, what we predicted wrong, and speculate on, potential builds, talk about the free update, the changes. I think we're looking at a very beefy update. I think this was one of the best content releases, at least based on how good the Griffin update was. And I think Archon Prophecy still has a lot to offer with the DLC as well. So yeah, do you want to introduce yourself, Bootman, or just make a
Hey,
starting comment on all this? Yeah.
I'm Bootman, and I'm looking forward to Age of Wonders 4 Archon Prophecy coming out so I can play it.
Yeah, I mean, Bootman was telling me because I didn't make any content on it, but RimWorld came out with DLC recently, and I got back to it after a long time. And I was talking to Bootman, and he was like, "Why are you talking about RimWorld? Archon Prophecy comes out in 1 month." Ye- So yeah, we're both really excited. I think a very neat thing. I mean, we'll get into it with more focus, as we go down the dev diary. But one neat thing about the architects, and I think it's down. I'm sure it's down here somewhere, specifically talking about. Oh yes, the buildings, the special structures they can build. This is sort of a revival of playing with affinities because for those of you still unaware of it, before I don't think it was around what season 2 of DLC, the start that they changed, but affinities had quite a bit of a way to play with them because heroes defined the affinities you got, or more specifically, your ruler did, and some heroes could affect your affinity. So you could play with tomes a lot more. And we lost that with the reworks to how signature skills work, how everything else works. And they kind of brought it back with the architects because as
Well, I think the more appropriate comparison is to the original Magic Victory.
oh, I mean, uh I suppose so. I
So
guess
the original Magic Victory before they updated it was special province improvements that granted you affinity, and you had to build all three, and then you would do a Magic Victory that way.
yeah, I think that's fair. You, for those of you not aware, I barely play with some win types because I like long matches, and the Magic Victory kind of has a chance to end things earlier. So, yeah, I don't know that as much as Bootman, who definitely plays around with the certain victory conditions, and I prefer more conquest and domination. So, yeah. S Yeah, I think that's comparable, but I think if you're playing something that doesn't involve the old, or rather, if we're playing something that wasn't like the old Magic Victory, uh, this is a new way to play with affinities. I mean, you can shift your entire culture based on what these buildings do, and just like Primal, your initial choice also affects it. And if I'm not mistaken, there's three new society traits, or is it one that you can pick from three choices that lets you affect your affinities?
So there's in the DLC, there's three new Prophecy Society traits, which all look awesome. And then there is also another one coming with the Griffin update, which you unlock via the Pantheon upgrade system. And that's the one where every 10th round you get crazy bonuses.
Oh yeah, that's the astrology one. But the other ones
Yeah.
they grant you affinity, and if you combine that with the architect, you can play around a lot more with what tomes you can unlock, right?
Well, the relevant thing about it is that they essentially grant a floating affinity. So two of the traits you can select between three possible affinities. So if you're, for instance, playing with Shadow Affinity and you need a Shadow Affinity for your society traits, there wasn't always a great option to pick a Shadow Affinity with, depending on your build. Materium always had good stuff. Order always has good stuff. Let's see what else. Yeah, Shadow was the main one that I always had trouble with if I need to pick something. Before they put in Swift Marchers, Chaos also had problems. Basically, though, if you don't have anything else you like on existing affinities, you can pick those. The third one can work with all 6 affinities, and instead of granting 1 affinity point, it grants 2. So if you pick that and also are a dragon ruler, then you're going to start the game with 2 more affinity than a normal player would have.
Yeah, and if you pick architects, these wonders here, or rather these special province improvements, each one of them is an affinity point. And I think, and then if I'm not wrong, you can make different ones in each city and not make a focused one. So basically, you can grab any affinity in any order or invest in one or two or three.
The
But
only requirement is you have to have 1 affinity of the type in order to build the special province improvement.
yeah, but I mean, so long as you meet that, and it's pretty easy
Yes.
to do so, you can basically play around with this. So in total, if we're considering that specific society trait with the extra affinity, a dragon ruler, and what architects offer, we're talking about a free floating extra 6 affinities, which is more than what we used to have with the old system with the heroes, insofar as it was mostly your ruler, because getting a hero that affected affinity was way rarer. It was hard to make sure you would get one. But with the ruler, you had up to 4 manipulation. The one thing though is with the ruler, you used to be able to do a kind of trick that was like having a string on a coin and you pull it out of the vending machine after you already got your soda or whatever, because you could respect your ruler, and by respecting the ruler, you could then pick whatever affinity you want with the signature skills. What mattered was when you picked that tome, you had it to let you unlock it. But yeah, I
Which
think
I guess means
the
you could do something similar now if you're willing to deconstruct your special province improvement and build a different one. I'm sure
I
there's some wacky build out there that could use that.
I suppose so. I guess if you're I'm not sure actually. I'm curious what happens if you lose the city or make it a vassal, if the building stays there and you can still build other ones. And I mean, what happens if you're playing against other architects and you take over their city with that structure? That's actually a very good point.
It has to just keep working, doesn't it? There's no special information otherwise.
Yeah,
So
which
yeah,
would
everybody
be
out there, target the architects first, take them out, and get their affinities. That's the
I mean, yeah, I suppose that would work. I mean, we've all at some point taken over cities that have, special province improvements that we don't have, and they stay working. So I don't see why that would be an exception. Yeah, that very interesting, good strategy. So barbarian players, you have some hope. Raid, pillage, just don't destroy it, of course. Destroy
yep.
everything else, but take over the city just for that. Yeah, I like this. I'm curious to test out if we can play with how these buildings work on the map. And of course, how the AI plays with them. Because the AI is much happier to establish like 1,000 cities. And I wonder if they would commit or just make smaller ones across all cities or make the big one in their capital.
Yeah.
So,
Until I know more about the costs, it's going to be hard to 100% understand where it's going in terms of what you can practically do.
Yeah, and actually, now that I think about it, I mentioned barbarians. Is this something that can just be sacked like any other province?
Yeah, yeah, it's just a province improvement. Yeah.
And if it's pillaged, do you lose the affinity?
I would assume you lose the affinity until you rebuild it. Yeah.
Huh, that would make it a very high priority thing to protect then, because that would suck. Imagine you're ready to get your tome on the next turn and some cheeky AI or enemy just destroys your stuff in a second
Well,
because
yeah, yeah.
they've
The
got
annoying part is going to be, typically speaking, just being on top of or starting to raid a province is enough to shut it down. So if it truly works just like any other province improvement, you'll
yeah.
get your tome and then just look at the map and be like, "Wait, I can't take the tome because this phoenix is sitting on top of my special province improvement."
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess that's the price you pay for the benefit it gives.
It's very
So
powerful. So yeah.
yeah. So everyone, if you do it, try to make it very close to the capital, somewhere you can dispatch troops in an instant. Don't put it on like that new thing you annexed just to keep, the whole feng shui of your core the same. I think this one is a very high priority to be adjacent to the city. Now, I think the rest of this one just talks about their process. Let's see, part two. Oh yeah, they're talking
Yeah,
about the
part two is about the
units.
units.
Yeah. And I'm very excited for the units, mostly because, as you predicted it, Bootman called this out way before me and some of us. I think he was talking last time. If you've watched it, he was talking about how what we're lacking is more support units and high tier support units. And we'll see some of that in the tome section because he guessed one tome completely right. But I mean the whole situation here with the architects. For instance, we get the first tier one support unit because before they were locked behind you unlocking tier two, and now you can just have one and have one be hired very easily. And if I'm not mistaken, their higher tier unit is also support, or
Yeah, they're tier
yes, it
three
is.
supports, and then they changed the chaplain from a tier two support to a tier three support in the Faith Tome, and
Yeah,
also one of the new tomes adds a tier four cultural support or racial support rather. Um, so we're ending up with three high tier racial supports this update.
yeah, and not to mention that every last one of the support units in the game got something special for their champion rank, anything relevant to how they function. So it's very neat. So they really revisited support as a unit type and are trying to make them more impactful and something you would consider playing more than, just fielding one or two and kind of forgetting they exist. The one thing I'm kind of curious about is they made the pole arm unit is a shield unit. This had the grounds to be a weird hybrid, but I guess they didn't want to open that box and all the problems it would cause. Yeah, but
Yeah, it's I mean, they could have given it the ability to hunt down large targets, and if I was to guess, I would guess that was something they had initially. Right now, it just has first strike, which is very good. That means it is kind of the middle ground between, well, not really middle ground. It's a shield unit with first strike, so it's kind of like a pole arm unit. It doesn't have large target hunter, but that's because they moved that to the archer to give the archer a more unique role, and I think that was probably a good call.
yeah, that's fair. I think it would otherwise be like a very front-loaded tier two. I mean, it would probably have even tier three potential at that point, which would
Yes.
make it definitely overshadow the architect. I mean, these archers, I think, are a little weird, but I get it. They had to have a large unit hunting ranged unit to set it apart from other archers and other cultural ranged units. It fills a niche that wasn't filled before. Still a little strange, but I guess it makes sense. Yeah, other than that, the Earthbreaker, I mean, all these units actually, they're very versatile because the funny thing is and every one of them is going to adapt based on your most dominant affinity, which
Yep.
is a system that I am very curious about because of how it will calculate things. Because the thing is, sure, on paper this sounds simple. You get the highest affinity to define what your culture does. But what when you have affinities of the same amount as the top affinity? What do they prioritize? Is it what's earlier on the code base? Is it the last one that was updated? I'm not sure how it works, but I have a lot of questions, and I'm sure. Well, I mean, of course, we'll figure it out when it's released. But yeah, until then, I am just looking at this and wondering if the affinities match, do we get dual damage types, triple damage types? Because if it does, which would be crazy, uh, this would be the best culture to fuel the afflictor. I mean, no questions asked.
Yeah, but I really think it's gonna be just whatever the highest one is. And if you get a tie, then it stays with the one that happened first. I think that's
The
probably the route it's gonna go.
maybe or the last one updated, which depends on how it's coded. That's the darn thing.
It's mandatorily arbitrary.
Yeah. But I don't know. I think there would be a certain beauty if the way they solved it was if it's a tie, you get both, but it reduces the damage. Because then it would make for a very weird build possibility where you keep this weird affinity feng shui just to get every damage type on your units. But yeah, I think their roster is a little unusual, but I'm fine with it. I think it's kind of open ended, but the open ended is because they'll be defined by your tomes and your affinities, which is probably good because their whole culture, not faction, their whole culture is worked around you kind of build up to whatever you want. It's just that they
Yeah.
feel kind of, you know, in a vacuum, they feel kind of generic, but that's because you haven't given them the flavor which your choices will give them.
I think
Um,
that they're
uh,
going to have a pretty unique early game because of the fact that their tier ones are a shock and a support. That's going to change the way that you approach initial encounters. Um, I think that having a large target hunting archer is also going to make things a bit different. The shield unit is obviously just very solid. You'll want to be getting if you're sticking with cultural units, you'll want to get a lot of those. Um,
yeah, I mean, I'm definitely my first build when playing architects will definitely be playing with this and one of the new tomes just to relive the whole Spartan vibe. But yeah, I think this, of course, will be your meat and bones of your armies, unless you get something more useful from the tomes, for sure. The
yeah,
architect, I think it will be, unless you're playing something very specific, it will be. I guess with summoners you would have more than one, but I think one per army max, and just have it support everything else on the battlefield. But yeah, I think I'm looking forward because they definitely this DLC they try to fill niches and roles that we didn't have before. It's very clear their intent to make it different, not just make, oh, here's a new culture, but it's basically a remix of the old stuff with a fresh coat of paint.
Yeah, it's definitely its own thing. I mean, my concern going into it was the architects. I mean, it just seemed like they could be end up being close to high. I know I said that Oathsworn as well,
Yeah.
which I stand by the way. The Oathsworn are just what high should have been.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think that was a big concern last time we discussed things, that this would somehow be pigeonholed into the whole dark versus light thing, and it would just overshadow High yet again after what Oathsworn did. But no, this is, in an odd way, this feels like a distant cousin of Industrious and Primal, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah,
Because yeah, their whole thing is building things up, but they also have that freedom that Primal has, where you just set up whatever you want. And I think that's the way. I mean, there's no shame in having something more specific like Oathsworn, where yeah, you have the custom. You can customize it to be very different, but all three of them are kind of a specific vibe of a faction that you go for. It's not something that you'll use as a base for just about everything.
yes.
So I think we can move on to the tomes, and then we can even speculate more on builds with this. So first off, Tome of Virtue coming in with. Oh yes, this one is the one that you liked quite a lot for the Paladin. I believe you were talking about making a lot of builds with this one.
Yeah, it's a tier 3 racial shield unit with an optional mount. That goes into so many builds. It's such a great. This is something that I actually liked about the architects is that the architects don't have a whole lot of optional mounts and they have no default mounts. Because optional mounts have been really, really strong throughout Age of Wonders 4. So that's why this is going to be great. I think right now the only optional mount shield units, I'm pretty sure it's just the ones from Industrial.
The Bastion.
Uh,
Yeah,
what?
I do the Bastion.
Yeah. And also the tier ones from Primal. Those are also optional shield units that get mounts. And I guess the feudal tier 2 shield units are too. But like in terms of tier 3s and higher, there's essentially nothing.
Actually,
The
the new Liege Guard, the feudal update added. So
Oh yeah,
aristocracy
that's a
does
good point
get
too.
mounts. Yeah.
Yeah, but there's no access to it through the tomes. So now we got the Paladin. That's gonna help out a lot of builds. I mean, you could take this with like Mystics just for the Paladin, and it'll keep all your mages safe.
Oh yeah, and it has a kind of battle magey vibe. I think it would also kind of vibe with elephant mounts and making a desert kingdom. I think they have that aura about them. But yeah, yeah, this is pretty much the holy tome. It gives off yet another holy-ish thing, because this is also something we discussed last time. Order was a very underserved affinity, and now we're getting a lot of order stuff, which is very, very neat. So yeah, I think this will be pretty good for, branching out things. And as Bootman and I were discussing, actually, we're getting to a point in Age of Wonders 4 where now when you set off with an idea for a faction and the build, there's no just one right answer. We're getting to a point where there's just so much stuff that you can, at least in some ideas, you have two or three different ways to go about it, which is very, very neat.
Well, yeah. Virtue's also, I mean, it's got a tier 3 summonable battle mage. Like, that's also
Yeah,
really useful.
yeah. I think it's good to have more alternatives, and yeah, I mean, we didn't have all that many battle mages. I mean, in tomes aside from astral ones, I'm pretty sure. Oh,
Yeah, I don't think there's any. I
oh no,
don't.
no,
There's
actually, the chaos one,
yeah,
yes,
the
and
chaos eater is the chaos eater is the
and
exception. So is the banshee, which is
and the
also tier
accursed
3.
trickster,
What?
the trickster from Calamity, actually, it's
Oh
another
yeah, that
battle
guy's
mage.
also a battle mage. Yeah, that's very
Yeah,
late on.
yeah, but this is a tier 2 tome, so we're talking about a very early battle mage for order aligned faction. So this is pretty darn good.
Well, yeah, I'd say it's useful for any sort of summoning based build. It's a very early battle mage you can get that's very strong.
Yeah, and for me, the one that the thing in this tome that I'm interested in is Virtuous Spirit, because we had before the whole the trait that reduced the impact that losing models on your unit composition had, and now that we have this could stack up with that form trait, and I'm curious what the math will be, because this doesn't exactly say how much of the losses you ignore, but I think it's 50 or 40% in the form trait off the top of my head.
It's
So,
50.
oh, it's 50. So if this is, I don't know, even 30, you know, it would still mean you ignore a lot of that penalty.
It wouldn't
And
be too crazy if it was 50.
yeah, and if they do stack, which I hope they do, it would finally give some vindication to strategies that have you have a lot of models. And of course, we didn't have that much stuff, mostly the Tome of the Horde, but I think it's nice that you can make it so wanting to have a lot of models doesn't punish you versus, the kind of meta of just having units on mounts that reduce the amount of models, then giving them super growth.
Yeah, I mean, Tome of the Horde already. I mean, the advantage of Tome of the Horde was mostly one, it made your heroes harder to hit, and two, the the flat damage boost. But you paid for that by having more models, and so it was easier to reduce your damage. So it made them very rushy. This is gonna make them very tar pity. It's gonna make Tome of the Horde have a lot fewer disadvantages. And I would say that that's fine. I mean, it's going to be a cool complementary aspect to it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think that will be. I mean, it's nice to do something that branches out and gives you another venue, just like I was saying earlier. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it and what possibilities it brings. And now let's get to the tome that Bootman basically had, an inside contact with the devs because he totally predicted this. Because he was like, "Oh, I think we should have an order and astral tome, and it should have a support unit that's like an oracle, and it's all about seeing the future and all that." And here you go, Tome of Prophecies, just like he said.
It's so funny to me because I don't remember predicting that at all. I do not remember predicting that at all.
Well, you
Except
did
that for you, it was
predict.
like I can't believe you did this.
I mean, you did call it out. I think at the time we mostly just had the names, Tome of Prophecies, and then you mentioned the idea of an Oracle support unit. And there it
Gotcha.
is.
Yep.
And yeah, it's going to be nice. I think I'm personally very happy because it has yet another ranged enchantment, and I love trying to stack those up on all kinds of ranged units. Oh no, this isn't the longbow. I think this is the regular feudal archer, but it's gonna be pretty nice because uh yeah, it doesn't play with marked as we kind of expected it to, but it has a different ish buff, and it interacts a little different than other supports. So it's nice to have more variety. I like the model. I like the vibe of this. It works well with the whole astrology thing, the new society trait. So very flavorful overall, and I think it's going to be a pretty decent tome. It has its particular little mechanics, but yeah, it's nice. It's another option, something that can shape up the identity of an entire faction that you're setting up.
Yeah, I think that its primary usefulness is going to be as a defensive tome. It doesn't. I mean, I think it's by design. I don't think it's meant to be super offensive. But like, the Archer enchantment, which is, closest to being a damage buff, not too impressive. It just buffs critical hit rate and makes them faithful. So it's not really doing a whole lot to help your damage there when there's so many other critical hit things you could get. But the
It makes it
I
easier
easier. Yeah, well, it depends. I mean, you could just tick what was it?
if you have.
Artisan equipment at tier 2. There's Tome of Devastation that gives critical chance.
I don't think artisan
Um,
armaments applies to ranged, actually. If
oh, does it not?
I think it's mostly melee. The it, if memory serves right, the easiest thing you can do for ranged critical is
You're
having
right.
chaos affinities in
Yeah.
your general. So if you have a general with 4 chaos signature skills, we're talking about a 40% increase, and then you have this. But yeah, I think the ranged quote unquote units that benefited from armaments are skirmishers.
Yeah. No, I just looked it up. You're right.
Yeah. So yeah, this
Still,
yeah, I get it. I
I,
get it.
I don't think the Tome has too much offensive potential, which is probably a design. The True Strike is the most interesting part, but I don't know how often I'm in a position where my attacks are just regularly missing the enemies. Like, I'm trying to think. It's literally just archers, but I suppose that's fine. You can apply True Strike to your Reaver with guns and make sure they 100% hit. That's fine strategy. It does seem that the main benefit is the precognition, giving the ability to defend themselves and avoid attacks. I have builds already that are focused on going into defense mode and getting benefits from that. You have the well, now you have the Paladin, but before that, you also had the Tier 1 Oathsworn shield units. Those go into defense mode when they attack. And obviously, Industrial can go into defense mode. And then there were the optional Beetle mounts that, when you trigger their ability, they go into defense mode. So, having all that with the enchantment in this that gives precognition whenever it goes into defense mode, that's going to make those builds pop out even more.
Oh sure. And actually, True Strike itself, it became more readily available as a buff because with the
It did.
rework to the classes, I believe the ritualist now can grant it fairly reliably with Conjure Wild Growth. One of the options is you conjure a hex of I think 6 spaces ish, or rather,
Yeah, but the Oracle can do it too if they're striking
yeah,
Cordant.
yes. And I think the True Strike is just for one turn with the. So you can kind of cascade things because you can have discipline on the first turn, then you have your hero give everyone that with the wild growth, and then you have the oracle give them that. So you can basically have 3 turns of nonstop hitting for sure. Yeah. Now part 2. And these are the tier 4 tomes. The other two were the early game-ish ones. Now we're getting to the ones that are more thematic, the good archons and the bad archons, quote unquote, theming of this.
Yeah.
Because now we get the giants like they promised. We get the titan, which is Very neat, new design, I think, because I don't believe we've seen one of these in previous installments.
I
But
think they would have been in the games that we didn't play, but we both started Age of Wonders 3.
yeah, we started with three. People watching who played since the first, please do tell us. But yeah, we're getting also, for those of you who played and started at three just like us, we get to see the Undead Titan back. It looks a little bit different, of course. The other one had a lot more plating around the torso. It looked a little goofier. This one looks pretty much. I think it has a kind of Frankenstein Death Knight vibe. I like it.
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and yeah, pretty much these tomes are focused on that, on the whole the good side of the Archons versus their bad side, because it mirrors itself pretty much. You have the Astra and the good Titan, and then you have the undead Titan and the fallen angel. So it's pretty much, I think it's the two more focused tomes as far as theming goes. I think they go into very specific places. Still, I like having an Order and Shadow tome, which is an unusual combo. I think this opens up.
I'd be really happy about it if it wasn't just Undead Tome.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. It's yet another Undead tome, but I like that it opens itself up for other builds, because it's not always that you invest into Shadow to get a little bit of Undead stuff, and having more Order options is nice. Although,
Yeah.
yeah, it's fairly limited. Shadow could use some more variety beyond just undead, but we'll see where it goes.
Well, yeah, because now it's undead all the way down. It's just tier 1 through 5, everything is undead. This is an issue with their tier 5 tome as well, because the tier 5 shadow tome only works if you care about undead. It has no other purpose in life.
Y-
Um
Yeah, pretty much.
so yeah, I would say that shadow's probably in the worst place in terms of variety.
It could use more frost stuff for sure. I think.
Frost stuff or just anything like I don't know, I could see more fear stuff being in play. Um, we could have done different kinds of corruption. Uh, I think the Tome of the Shinobi, whatever it was called, that one was also a good
Shades,
place to
yeah.
go for shadows.
Yeah, because the Shades pretty much brought back some stuff from the old classes, the Rogue class from 3, I believe. It brought back some stuff, and I think Oblivion has some of that stuff. So basically, the stuff that isn't as developed in Shadow is borrowed from the Frostling and Rogue stuff, basically, and then you have Undead just squashing both of those things.
Yeah. It's a great undead tome. It's even better than Reaper in terms of that. Uh, I'm definitely going to be. It's. I had a build that I had very much undead focused about playing really big tanks, and eventually I shifted that to be not undead related because I could get lifesteal from other sources and I could get natural healing from the dragon tome.
Yeah,
But now I'm just going to go back to the undead because thanks to this, you can get
yeah,
lifesteal and natural healing from undead.
yeah. And I mean, it comes front loaded. You get a tier 5 and a tier 4 pretty easy. You know,
Yeah.
I think it's very, very valid. But I also like that, Order gets some shiny new stuff. I think Order's also a little bit too focused on what it does, but I think it works better for it because a lot of factions can have good and holy things, but being undead is kind of a very specific choice. I think the order units play nicer with everyone else and other strategies than the undead play with different stuff that isn't them.
Well, yeah, it also just has like an enchantment that's good for everybody. It isn't just an undead related thing. It's
Yeah.
I am
But
curious of the Archon Gate though. I'm curious what that's gonna do because
yeah,
I
I'm
think
not. I'm not sure. I think it could be kind of like the Shrine of Calamity and stuff like that. I think we'll summon the wild. I mean, hire the wild stuff at things we would usually only find in the overworld will become available in your cities, kind of like you can get with Calamity and Prosperity. I'm thinking it's that.
I think it's be yeah, I think it's be similar to the Demon Gate tome.
Yeah, a teleporter, and it gives you some special units. I think that's
Yes.
going to be the general vibe of it. But yeah, I think this does add up more stuff. And I mean, if you're a fan of undead, come on, you're basically salivating at the sight of this because especially if you're playing just undead, now you get two undead tomes at tier 4. You can completely ignore the oblivion stuff and all that. You can just grab this. And yeah, I think I'll admit the Fallen Angel looks very, very cool, but I think in this update you're way more excited about the evil Archons, and I'm way more excited about the good Archons and all that. Because
Yeah.
yeah, I think which is good. It means we're excited about separate stuff and we have our preferences. But yeah,
Well, especially because the evil Archon Titan that is also a summoning unit. When it kills things, it summons things. So
yeah, which makes it about as frightening as it was in Age of Wonders 3. Which it was frightening in a different way because those things snuck up on you and destroyed your armies, but this is going to cause some damage, I'm sure. But yeah, I think those are the tomes. I think we have some fun ideas of where to go. I also want to take this moment to really praise the Griffin update because it did so much good quality of life for us, reworking the hero classes, and we have the a new class that I haven't had the chance to look at, the Battle Saint. Now that is locked behind the DLC, but it probably got some of the stuff that the old classes had, at least the revive, because I thought the ritualist would still have the revive power, but now it's reincarnate, which if you're playing a more uh animal focused build, that's good for you, because if you're playing just animals and you lose an animal and use reincarnate on it, you get maybe the same animal or a different type. So no,
that's kind of
really,
funny.
yeah.
Does it really
I
not have a any kind of revivability?
No, you only have polymorph and reincarnate. Ritualist has one
Yeah,
of
you're right.
those. So basically, Ritualist is now very good for capturing wild stuff because you can polymorph very easy. Before, you either had to go for the nature tome or get a wand, which you won't always have, especially if you're not playing into the item forge. So just having that, so long as you have a ritualist, is a way easier access to the strat of, turn the tier 5 into a tier 1 unit and capture it somehow. So that's
Yeah,
going to be very easy to do now.
much more accessible.
Yeah, and the crazy thing, for those of you who haven't caught up on the free updates, is that now you can configure your faction to already have its heroes pre-made. So you can even specify their governor traits and their innate traits. So if you really like rolling around with the full hero stack alongside your leader, you can make all of them elitists so they all benefit from fighting with your leader and they get bonuses and unlock all their governor stuff. You can have your favorite governor bonuses already chosen. So it's
So it
very,
might
very
be a bit too
neat.
much control.
Maybe a little bit, for the people who will definitely use that to super optimize, but I think it gives a little more flavor, and I'm sure I had campaigns where at the time I really liked how well a hero did, but match was over, they were completely forgotten because I couldn't save them somehow. So thematically, if you have a really standout hero, you can make them again and make sure they're a recurring thing. The control also gives you some fun to have. So people who play with it for theming will, have a lot of fun with it, and people who will take advantage of this to make sure all their heroes are optimized will do that as well.
Yeah, I think it's probably a wise choice. It removes randomization for the autists that really care about that sort of stuff. And if you don't care about that sort of stuff, you can still have it be random. And if you want to tell a story about specific characters doing specific things, then you can create that. And I think that that is great. Everybody benefits.
Oh yeah.
The aspect of control that I want the most, though, is, or that I like the most, is the ability to set up the tome paths automatically.
Oh yeah, there's also that quality of life. So that is very neat. So now that you can play, I mean, you could always play against your custom factions, but now you can make sure they pick everything. Before they said that based on how you play, the AI would try to imitate the tome path, but now you can make sure they do. You can make it very
Yeah, it
specific.
tended to work. I will say that much. It did tend to work, but
Now it's
now
basically
it's
an
much more sure.
assurance. Yeah. So now you just do it. I think it would be nice if that feature was slightly expanded on because usually when I play a build after I theory craft, I keep a screenshot that I took of the database to remind myself of the path. It would be neat if you save that path for the AI. The tome menu would suggest, oh, this is the path you set for the AI. Do you want to pick these tomes? Kind of a recommendation, or even just loading up with the next tome of the path as the first one when you open the menu. So that one is the typical one you would choose.
That could work. I think one thing that Age of Wonders 4 has in mind for its like ideal gameplay is that you are supposed to kind of counterpick people and like adjust your tones on the fly as things happen. So I can see why they wouldn't necessarily immediately go for that, but they also haven't really quite gotten there yet with the things. I don't ever really adjust my build based off of happenings.
Yeah, me either. I just, if a happening happens to have an enchantment I like, I use it. And even then, for a super ranged fan that I am, I'm very upset that the ranged happening is okay, you lose one range, which is something very costly to raise, even though the trade off is very good, plus 30% damage is a very tempting offer, but I don't think I would ever want to lose the strategic benefit of the extra range. But yeah, I digress. I think the Griffin update was very robust for what it was. It wasn't a cultural rework, and we're not getting one this wave. So hopefully, we get a free update next time because as Bootman and I are feeling, I think the general vibe of this is we're getting a season 3. It
I think
seems
so
to
too.
be in the cards, a season 3.
Real quick before we get off the Griffin update, I just want to say one more thing about it. They made a ton of small changes to the tomes, and all of them are very good.
Oh yes,
The
yes.
order and astral tomes have both been really refined, and the tomes that needed buffs typically got them, and I think that it's going to work out very well.
Oh yes, yes, absolutely. One thing that I kind of tested and played around with when I was doing the videos for the updated classes. The Throne of Mirrors does work, and it's very good. Uh, for those of you who aren't aware, previously the Throne of Mirrors worked as a city structure that if your city was besieged, a copy of your ruler would appear there. And okay, it was very situational. a good benefit to be sure, because sometimes you're caught out of position, and having a copy of your ruler be able to defend the city was good. But they made the small change that anytime a fight in your domain happens, you get a copy of your ruler. And I'm happy to report that, well, it has all the items, but also the current HP of your ruler. So if your ruler is a little bit beat up, you're gonna have a weaker astral projection. But other than that, equipment, everything. The only thing is it can't summon other stuff. So if you have a summoning ruler, maybe this one isn't for you. But I think that was a very fun addition that they made.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think everything is in a good place still. I do think it's gonna be very fun. When this video goes up, I think it will be about 10 days till Archon Prophecy. So we're getting there. At the time of recording this, we're still a few days behind that, so it's an even longer wait. But it's coming here soon, and we're both very excited for it. So here's to it being an amazing DLC, and here's to a season 3 coming, because the devs keep hitting stuff out of the park, and I think there's space for more reworks, revisiting old cultures like feudal was revisited, and yeah, just generally improving the game. Not that it's in a bad spot, but with all the nice stuff that they got coming in, you can't help but hope for new nice stuff.
Yeah, I think that we're gonna see a lot of good stuff coming forward. I'm looking forward to the next season, and I think we're gonna get it. So fingers crossed on that. I'll buy season pass the day it comes out, and now we have to play the waiting game for another 2 weeks before the DLC comes out.
Yeah, we'll just have to find ways to keep ourselves busy and just then go head first on this and just make all kinds of builds and explore every single facet of the new culture, because with so many ways to build the architects, I'm sure there's going to be 1,000 ways to build them. So yeah, it's going to be very fun. I hope everyone listening and watching is about as excited as we are. And yeah, I think that's pretty much what we had to discuss for this time. Just checking out you know, all the information since last time we talked about this. And yeah, thank you, Bootman, for coming along as always. I think we bounce off of each other pretty well, and I think we can discuss things very well. And well, I'll see everyone in the next one. And please, if you listen this far, do consider just giving it, a like, maybe a comment. No pressure, just that with the algorithm changes, that would help out a lot. So thank you if you do that.